Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today we are going to speed up a computer, hopefully. Chances are it will work. And what we're going to do is we're going to take, this is my old Linux Mint laptop, which I bought, I don't know, 5 or so years ago. It's like $300 at a Best Buy open box deal. Installed Linux Mint on it, and it works great. I have since upgraded the RAM up to 8 gigs of RAM. I'm not sure if this can take 16 or not, but I just upgraded up to 8. The problem is it's always been extremely slow to start up. Just to show you how slow it is to start, we're going to go ahead and start a stopwatch here and see how long this thing actually takes to boot up. So what we're going to do is we're going to use CloneZilla to clone the hard drive onto an equal size SSD. So it's about 15 seconds or so to get to the encryption screen. We got that all set up. And this computer takes a few minutes to start up. Now, in the past, I have said, I'm not sure SSDs are all that stable yet. In the last couple years, the stability has really come up. So SSDs are becoming a much better, much more stable thing. And so I don't have any issues with converting this computer over to an SSD. Now, 5 years ago, for sure, we did actually have a few issues out there. And so because of that, I did warn against SSDs. More researchers coming out, more SSDs are hitting the market. They are showing themselves to be more and more and more reliable as they have been in the past. And so at this point in time, I think it is certainly well worth going with an SSD. Looks like we're about 1 minute and 20 seconds in. While that finishes booting up, I end up buying this Crucial. This is a brand that has been coming out lately, and they're a little bit lower cost. They're not quite as fast as your Samsung Evos, but they are still a pretty solid 20 Mbps? I don't forget all the numbers and stuff, but they're slightly slower than the Samsungs, but they're really significantly cheaper. All right, so 1.5 minutes or almost 2 minutes to get to the login screen. So we'll go ahead and get logged in, see how long it takes to get to the desktop. So this one is a 1 terabyte drive. I paid $50 for it. And I really just kind of want to see how well these guys work. So we're going to open this guy up, see how it is, and test out how this guy is going to work. So we have our SSD in there. We have, in the event you need an extra size spacer, we have a size spacer in the box. And the SSD itself is this size here. It looks like it's metal, but it is actually plastic. It is super light. So that's what we have. So it took about 2.5 minutes to get to the login screen. All right, so we'll go ahead and pause that. So now the next step that we're going to do is make sure you have a good solid backup in case you mess something up. In this computer's case, this is my offline work computer. I use this to work if I am in coffee shops, but I never actually save any solid data explicitly to it. If I happen to lose anything on here, it's not going to be the end of my world. And so I'm okay with running along. The only thing on here that I needed, I already previously took a backup. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shut it down, and we're going to talk about the cloning process. So what we're going to do is we are going to use CloneZilla, which I have downloaded the latest version of CloneZilla, which is somewhere in the CloneZilla 3 range. I do actually have another one on my drive in case it doesn't work, and I am using Ventoy. And I have a Ventoy drive with a lot of different distros on it, so I can boot into them for various diagnostic purposes. So we're going to go ahead and shut down the computer, reboot this with inside of CloneZilla. So on your Dell laptops, you're going to start it up and you're going to spam your F12 key. That's going to get you to a custom boot menu. And I'm going to go to USB storage. Let me go ahead and pull my camera on over here so you can kind of see. We have a hard drive here and we have a USB storage. We're going to boot into that. And then as that gets booted up, Ventoy shows up. Now you can see I have 2 CloneZillas there. And we're going to do the brand new one. Hopefully it boots. Haven't tested this one yet. Well, that's not exactly a sign I want to see. So we'll see if I can get that resolved. So there's something about the CloneZilla 3 that didn't work, so I rolled back to my CloneZilla 2.7. You know, maybe it's something with the hardware, maybe the system didn't download correctly, maybe it didn't get put on a Ventoy correctly, whatever, but now we are back to there. So I have a few options here on CloneZilla. Go ahead and drag this guy over here. And let me do this so you can guys see a little bit better. So we have a live to RAM. We have a VGA with large font to RAM. We have other modes of CloneZilla Live. We have a local hard operating system. So let's go ahead and all progress copy to RAM. You can remove media. So if I need to remove the media, I'm going to do that. I don't really need to do that. So we're just going to go ahead and run it in this format here and let that guy get boot up. And then hopefully CloneZilla is going to work with my capture card. So while that's setting itself up, I'm going to talk about the rest of the systems that we need. So I have a SATA to USB port here. So we're going to plug our drive into here. Now, as you are cloning a hard drive, you want to make very certain which drives are which. If they're the same manufacturer, make sure you know some information about the serial numbers. Since I have two completely different brands of hard drives, it's going to be perfectly fine. I should be able to figure out which one's which. So right now it's asking me what language to choose. We're just going to go with English and then keep the default keyboard layout. If you're in US, keep the layout. If you're not in US, change the keyboard to whatever your jurisdiction keyboard is. All right. Now this particular computer here, all right, so CloneZilla or enter the command line. We're going to just hit enter CloneZilla. And then we're going to leave this sit for here for now while we get everything else set up. This particular laptop, for some reason, does not push out enough power in the USB 3 port to power a hard drive. I have no idea why that is. It should, but it doesn't. So I use an external USB 3 port, which has external power. That makes sure that we are always set up. So we're going to plug in our hard drive. So now we have the internal hard drive and we have the external hard drive set up. And the next thing I'm going to do is plug in our capture card and see if my capture card works. All right, so very sadly, the capture card is not going to work with this setup. It might if I move everything over my big computer, but we're going to go ahead and work with what we got right here. So we have a few options to do. We can do device image or device device. The first one, we're working with disks or partitions using system images. Since I'm doing a full large hard drive, I'm probably not going to be able to do with that. So I'm going to do device device, work directly from disk or partition to disk or partition. So we're going to go with our second option. All right, so it's going to go ahead and have a look. We have beginner mode, we have expert mode, and we can see what the various options are. We're going to start just by using beginner mode and see what we have. So disk to local disk or local disk to local disk clone. We have partition to local partition or local partition. So the top one, we're doing a whole disk clone. The second one, we're doing a full we're just doing individual partitions. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at what the different partitions are. So we have choose the local disk as source. So the source disk is going to be the disk that we are going to want to copy everything from. This is the part we have to be really, really careful. All right. We select the wrong source and put it on. We wipe out everything and go, whoops. So what we have to do is we have to look at what our disks are. So SDA is likely going to be the internal hard drive. And what this is telling me is a 1 terabyte, and it looks like a Western Digital. And this one does match the one that's inside here, I believe, is Western Digital. Okay, I have to be really careful because I have a touch screen. Let's not touch things. All right, SDB is going to be the external hard drive. You can see CT, this is a 1 terabyte 500 SSD1. So since I'm going from a regular hard drive onto an SSD, we know that this one is our SSD, especially since this is an MX500, is exactly what is on the box. MX500. So MX500 is our target. So our top one is our source. And of course, SDC, this is 30 gigabytes. We know that that is our Ventoy drive. So we are choosing a disk as source. So this is going to be this one here. So we're going to hit tab to get to OK and hit yes. Now it's going to look at various things. Choose a local disk as the target. All data on the entire disk will be lost and replaced. The disk name is the device name in GNU Linux. The first disk in the system is HDA1 or SDA1. Second disk is HDB or SDB. So you'll see that the SDA is no longer here because we've already selected that as being our source. And now we are choosing our target. And of course that is this one here. So we're going to hit tab, push enter on OK. And now we're going to check the advanced parameters. All right. If you have no idea, keep the default. So SF check. So this is going to skip checking and repairing the source files. This is going to be useful if there might be some bad sectors and you're like, just save everything we can save. Skipping that would be good. Otherwise, it might try and do a repair and abort out if there's a problem. Interactivity check and repair system. And then the last one is check and repair source before cloning. And this guy here is basically going to be like, we're not going to give you any warnings. We're just going to go ahead and run and assume yes to every answer. So that's why there's a warning on that one. I do not know of any issues on the current hard drive other than the fact it's slow. And so we're just going to go ahead and skip everything, leave everything as default and push OK. The action to perform when everything is finished. We can reboot, shut down, we can enter command line prompt, we can reboot, or we can shut down. Let's just go ahead and shut everything down once it's done. We're going to go ahead and push OK. And next time you run the command directly, so here's the command line to run and press enter to continue. All right, so now what it's going to be doing is it's going to be checking everything. This is your last step before everything is destroyed. So be careful. Warning, warning, warning. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. The existing data in the partition will be overwritten, and that's SDB. So if we are okay with that, we're going to go ahead and hit yes. And then now let me ask you again. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Everything in SDB, that is, remember, our that is our MX500, will be lost. Correct. There was nothing in that drive. I just bought it and opened it out of the box. So now it is going to go ahead and start selecting the data, and it is going to begin its process. Now, you want to make sure this thing is not interrupted. And so in which case, I'm actually going to, as soon as I shut the video off, I'm actually going to plug it in. The battery is 100% full, but just in case, I'm going to make sure that we do that. So I have a few things while this is running, so I'll go ahead and turn the camera back around and tell you about a few of those little things. All right, well, that is running. I'll tell you one small warning we might see, and this is just a might. Since this is an encrypted drive, what might happen is the FS tab file is going to, it might report to something else as being the drive volume, in which case the first couple times, like the first time you log in, it might take a few minutes or so to get yourself logged in. All right, so what the fix is for that, as we showed on my restoring Linux Mint from a failed update, from a failed kernel update, we might have to go into that FS tab file and adjust the volume ID for the encrypted drive. We will still be able to get into it. It just might take longer to boot into the system. That is, if we don't get right in, boot right up, and get right to that login screen and then get right to the desktop, that's the thing we're going to test. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but that's one possible advance. So I'm going to show you the result we should see on this computer here. Of course, this is the one that we just had to fix because of goofy things going awry. And yeah, let me cover that bright light back up. Bright light, bright light. So as I push this drive here, this is, of course, it's a Ryzen computer. You'll see that pretty much as soon as I hit the button, it's going to get us right into the login screen in just a matter of a few seconds. So it's doing a check media. This is something that I added after the last foul up just to make sure that we can get into here and fix stuff if the kernel goes awry again. You'll see we're already on the login screen. Well, the decryption screen, I should say. Okay, so we are decrypted. And once it tells us it's set up successfully, with an SSD in here, it should take less than a few seconds, and then it's going to get us right to our login screen. Once we enter the login screen, another few seconds, it should take us right to the desktop. That's the expected result because this one is running with an SSD. So that's hopefully the result that we're going to get on the other computer as we move from an internal hard drive that takes a few minutes to read up to an SSD. That's the expected time we're going to get. Now, it might take slightly longer because this is a Ryzen 5 with 16 gigs of RAM. This is an old Core i5 with 8 gigs of RAM. So whatever impact that might have, but hopefully it will definitely take less than 3 minutes to get to the desktop, which is exactly what this computer takes right now. So we're going to go ahead and let this guy run. Just let it do its thing. Don't interrupt with it. And I'm going to plug it into power to make sure that it doesn't run out of battery for whatever reason. And then we'll come back and turn the video back on as soon as we are done with that. Just doing a brief little update. I switched to the main gaming computer because the USB drive on the laptop does not pull data as fast as it should, even though it is listed as a USB 3. It was one of those drives that was right at those transitional times. And it actually took 23 minutes to get to 0.4%. The rate of data transfer, which is reported down here, dropped to like 200 megabytes per minute. So it's going to take 72 hours to finish this. No, thank you. So I moved over to the gaming computer. A, we have way more RAM. B, a way better processor. And C, a lot more very, very high-speed ports on board. So we're running the internal hard drive from the laptop as SDA1 from my IC dock. And we are running the target drive, the SSD, onto a super high-speed USB 3.2 port that is directly on the motherboard itself. So now it's giving me a 6.8 gigabyte per minute transfer with an approximate time to finish of about 2.5 hours. So 72 hours versus 2.5 hours. I switched to the gaming computer or the streaming computer just because it has so much more beefy resources. And I looked at this saying, you know what? It is going to take forever if I have to do everything right on there. So I went ahead and did that step. I took the hard drive out of the computer, which is right now down here. I took the back off, just pulled the hard drive out of here, and now I just have everything set aside, and in about 2.5 hours or so, this guy should be done transferring the hard drive, and we will get back to the rest of the video. So it is almost done. You can see it's been running for 3 hours and 10 minutes. We have about a minute left. It's now running at 5.2 gigabytes per minute. So we are really counting down there to the final end. And of course, once this is done, then the next step is going to be dropping back down and setting it in the computer. So this is the computer here, and this is the frame that's going to hold it in. So we have 4 screws on either side here and 4 screws to hold it up into here, and then the drive on this one just slides right up into here. This is a Dell and Spirion. They are very serviceable. I put in extra RAM in here. Of course, hard drive. This is this is the computer I did update the wireless card to. There's no extra ports. It's not like my other laptop that has 2 separate ports in it. But we'll go ahead and let's see. This has about 30 seconds left, and then we'll walk through our final stages when that is done. All right, so 13, 12, 11, it skips one. It's running, the update is like 1.5 seconds. So there's 8, 6, 5. Next one should be, there's 4, should go 2, 1, and there we have it, 100% complete. So it says it's syncing okay. And then from this point in time, this is the last partition. So it's doing some updating partition changes. It's doing any final things. It might actually make those changes to any FS-tab files. I don't really know exactly for sure. It's giving us any updates, no VGs. And now it's running the install grub. So it's basically running the grub looking for anything there. And hopefully then we should be done in just a second here. Separate boot partition, trying to mount boot partition for grub install. Found grub 2 installed. And variable root not assigned in function. Program terminated. And now it's running the last bit. So once this is done doing its things, then we'll go ahead and give it a test and see if this guy is working, and it should. Okay, so now we're just going to power off the system, and once it powers off, it's going to shut down and, you know, give us a 7-second countdown, and the machine will now power off. Now we just need to pull out the drive and reinstall it to the system. So now the moment of truth. It took us last time 2 minutes and 44 seconds to land on the desktop. So we're going to go ahead and give it a try now, see what it does. So there's our Dell Insignia. Get a little bit of stuff going on over here. Here's our Linux Mint. Just going to click enter to get right past that. And it took us, let's see, 26 seconds to get to the login screen here. This is the decryption screen. And error. We'll deduct a few seconds from that. We'll count it from there. Since I'm doing this one-handedly, I goofed it up. All right, so we've got to our login screen immediately. And right to our desktop, 1 minute and 5 seconds. So including a error in the decryption. So we've cut our time from 2.5 minutes down to under 1 minute to land on the desktop with a SSD. So we got 30% saving. And my guess is if I just go ahead and click on anything, it's going to boot a whole lot faster. So let's just go ahead and click Firefox. So you used to have to wait for a whole minute for Firefox to boot up. Look at that. Split second. This is absolutely amazing. I think Libre Wolf is a flat pack. This is super, super fast. So that's what an SSD can do if you're running a hard drive. You can go ahead and change that to the SSD. I'm going to go ahead and put all the screws in, and we'll call this video complete. So there you have it, guys. How to switch from a hard drive to an SSD, or maybe how to clone your SSD if it's gotten to the end of its write cycles and you want to go ahead and do that. And with that, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.